of our own software, in terms of implementing creative solutions for managing health and safety on site. So across the team, we have, as you can see there, over 75 years experience in health and safety. Me personally, myself, I have over 10 years experience in predominantly the retail health and safety sector. And I'm currently based in the west of Ireland now on the Mayo-Galway border. So you can see there many of our retail sites, some of our client base there on the screen. And although we now work in the UK, Europe, and even internationally now, where we started off was predominantly in the Irish retail and hospitality sector. So we're delighted once again, as I say, to be here with Retail Excellence today to deliver this webinar. Just some housekeeping, guys, before we start off. We're going to keep everybody on mute just to allow for a good flow of the webinar. Questions can be asked via the chat function on the meeting here. So my plan is to take a break, just to pause for questions, maybe around 30 minutes in. So close to around 3:30. I'll just see if there's any questions in the chat that I'll deal with there and then. The presentation itself will be shared with you guys, but I just want to make you aware that the session is being recorded also, but that's purely for quality and training purposes from our own side. So the recording itself will not be shared with you, but the presentation itself, a PDF of that, will be. Okay. So just for the purposes of this webinar, I'll be referring to the Health and Safety Authority throughout as the HSA, okay? And the main objective of this webinar is to prepare you for a Health and Safety Authority inspection. Recommendations on what actions you should take before and after your inspection. So what I'm going to cover, an introduction, a brief look then at the Health and Safety Authority, where it was founded, the roles and responsibilities they have. I'm going to look then at why inspections and investigations happen. I'm going to look at a typical workplace inspection, what to expect, what they may ask for, what they may look for. And again, then key is the outcomes of a Health and Safety Authority inspection, what they will actually, the guidance or the recommendations they will make to you then. So getting ready for a Health and Safety Authority inspection, section 6. So preparation is key. Being ready and being prepared will obviously ensure that HSA inspection is an informative event for you, and it's nothing to worry about. Managing a HSA investigation. We look then at when the HSA are on site to carry out an investigation after a specific incident. So that's a section in itself. And with the times that's in it around COVID-19, I'll be briefly going through the Health and Safety Authority and their role in terms of regulation of COVID-19 and where we're at with that currently. Finally, then there'll be a conclusion, and as I've said, plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. So in terms of an introduction, the primary focus of a health and safety inspector is to promote and regulate safety, health and welfare for people at work and those affected by work activities. So by those affected, we mean our customers, members of the public who may be interacting with our workspaces and work environments. The role of the HSA inspector is also to encourage safer workplaces by providing help and guidance. So they're not purely a policing force or a regulatory force. They're there as well to provide help and guidance. So that's why we say to actively look at a Health and Safety Authority visit or inspection as a learning opportunity. Can our actions have a positive effect on a Health and Safety Authority inspection? They certainly can. So there's things that we can do in advance to be prepared and to be aware of before an inspection takes place that can make it a more positive event. So factors that can influence a Health and Safety Authority inspection. in a negative way. So things like failing to have the HSA inspector sign in and not making them aware of key health and safety arrangements on your site. So examples of that could be if the Health and Safety Authority arrive on site and they're not asked to sign in, that's an obvious gap from a COVID-19 contact tracing point of view and from a fire safety point of view as well. So, first impressions count, as I say. So we want to make sure that when they arrive on site, they're signing in and adhering to any site rules that you may have. Not meeting and greeting the inspector properly. So again, if they're being kept waiting, being rude or short to them, that's obviously going to get the inspection off on the wrong footing. And, while they're waiting around as well, it's again, just opportunity for them to observe behaviors, etc. So it's key that we meet them promptly and do it in a professional manner. Again, failing to have COVID-19 controls in place or failing to implement COVID-19 controls. So once they arrive on site, although they are the Health and Safety Authority, we are the people in charge of the premises. So we need to make sure that they are signing in and adhering to any COVID-19 controls, such as hand sanitizing, that we may have in place. A lack of awareness of where documentation is located. So I'll cover this later, but one of the key things the Health and Safety Authority Inspector is going to want to see is obviously your safety statement and any associated risk assessments. So failure to produce these or, a delay and not knowing where to find these will obviously not look well from their point of view. A lack of awareness, knowledge or understanding by management of their role and responsibilities in health and safety. A lack of awareness, knowledge or understanding by employees of safe working procedures. And again, if the Health and Safety Authority Inspector observes unsafe situations, conditions or acts by anybody on site, including management, employees or contractors. So again, once they arrive in your car park or in your front door, they will be observant, they will be looking around for signs that there is a good health and safety culture on your site. So from the positive point of view, then it's really the opposite to everything there. It's by getting off on a right footing, by having them sign in and making them aware of any key controls that are on your site. So again, letting them know if there's any requirement to wear high-vis vests in any sections of your store, making them aware if there's any planned fire drills or any activity like that happening throughout the day. Being prompt to meet them and being positive and open, honest and polite. Again, highlight any COVID-19 controls you have in place at the minute. And if you need them to fill out a visitor questionnaire on arrival, the same way you would do with contractors or visitors. So ensure that that's all in place. Get it off to the right footing with them by producing all requested evidence and show confidence in your risk management system in place. So when they ask to see a safety statement or risk assessments, again, just knowing where to find all this information and presenting it to them in a confident manner. You should know who to ask for certain information and show confidence in your people. So if the Health and Safety Authority Inspector is on site and they are interested in a particular piece of equipment or process, and if you're not sure of it, get other people involved. Ask a member of staff who's present that's more familiar with the process to give a little guidance as to control measures that might be in place. Be aware of your responsibilities and arrangements in place to manage health and safety. And again, ensure that all safe practices and good housekeeping standards are being observed all throughout a Health and Safety Authority Inspector visit. And again, just at all times in general. So who are the Health and Safety Authority? The Health and Safety Authority is the national statutory body which regulates the administration and enforcement of health and safety legislation in Irish workplaces. The Health and Safety Authority was founded in 1989 under the Health and Safety and Welfare at Work Act 1989. Its remit now also includes compliance with the Return to Work Safety Protocol and all associated COVID-19 legislation that may impact workplace health and safety. The main responsibilities for the Health and Safety Authority. So The Health and Safety Authority's main responsibility is to ensure that over 2 million workers across all sectors in Ireland and those affected by the work activity of all workplaces are protected from work-related injury and ill health. So they are an enforcement body to enforce health and safety legislation. One of their main goals is to promote accident prevention. So again, they're out there encouraging businesses to be proactive to prevent accidents. And again, their role as well is to provide information and advice. So again, I'll say it, to treat a Health and Safety Authority inspection or visit as a learning opportunity and to not be afraid to ask questions, because that's part of their remit as well. So this comes from their own website in terms of the pillars of how they operate. So again, it's information about their regulatory function, to increase focus on compliance through risk-based inspection and enforcement, promotion of all health and safety information, to support, educate and raise awareness to prevent accidents, injuries and ill health, and in a partnership with influence retail bodies, insurance sector, government. They're there to influence and support health and safety and productive lives and enterprises. They're also an accreditation body. So again, one of their aims is to grow the national accreditation service to enable and support enterprises and public services. So the powers of the Health and Safety Authority inspectors. So authority inspectors are granted their powers under Section 64 of the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act 2005. So for the duration of the webinar, I may refer to this act as the 2005 Act. So all of their powers to inspect the premises, to request information, all of that has a legal basis, and it's based under the 2005 Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act. An inspector can use some or all of these powers during the course of an inspection. The Health and Safety Authority also have powers granted to them under the Chemicals Act, under the Dangerous Substances Act, and also under the Carriage of Dangerous Goods by Roads regulations. So depending on your sector, there may be other powers that they may have to request information or to inspect the premises under those acts as well. But the primary piece of legislation they fall under is this 2005 Act. So the general powers of inspectors. So a Health and Safety Authority inspector has at any time the right of entry into a place of work or place used for keeping articles or substances, the right to search and examine the place, processes, procedures, records, articles and substances. They have the power to request the preservation of a scene. So if you've had a serious accident on site and the Health and Safety Authority are present, they may request you to seal up an area and to preserve the scene until further investigation takes place. They also have the power to request records, take copies, access records on computer systems. So many of us now have online training systems, so they may request to see copies of, for example, a manual handling certificate. So they would have the right to ask you to access those sorts of databases to see samples of that training. They have the power to request information, assistance from you, and also the right to summon persons at a later date to provide information if they feel there's a breach of health and safety in any workplace. They can request an article is operated or set in motion. So they may want to see how a particular machine or process works. So they would have the right to ask you to demonstrate that to them. They can interview any members of staff. They can take measurements, photographs, video recordings, or other recordings, such as maybe noise measurements on site while they're carrying out their duties. They may require items that pose a risk to health and safety to be dismantled or subjected to test. So if they were on site and they felt that a goods lift or some mechanical means of lifting was posing a risk to health and safety, they may request to have that piece of equipment dismantled. Now that might involve getting a maintenance company on site at a further date to demonstrate it to them, but they could make that request. They also have the right to remove and retain articles and substances. And as well, they can request the name and address of persons deemed to have committed a crime. So by crime there we mean an offence under the 2005 Act. So that's just a sample of some of the powers that Health and Safety Authority inspectors have. So then a key question we have to ask ourselves is, why do inspections and investigations happen? So why do the Health and Safety Authority visit workplaces? So workplace inspections are part of their mandate. It's part of their regulation function to ensure compliance. And again, also investigations may be required legally under certain circumstances. So for example, a fatal accident. It is the Health and Safety Authority's legal obligation to investigate all fatal accidents in Irish workplaces. So an inspection by the Health and Safety Authority, it could be because a workplace has been randomly or pre-selected from the Health and Safety Authority database. It could be to follow up to see if there's any outstanding enforcement actions, to follow up on a previous workplace inspection. So if the Health and Safety Authority have been on site previously and if they've made recommendations, they may follow that up to see if you have actually done what you've committed to doing on a previous inspection. As said previously, to investigate a fatality or very serious non-fatal incident, they may be on site. They can also be on site to investigate a complaint made to them about a particular workplace. That complaint could be from somebody working in that business, or it could be from a member of the public. You just wouldn't know. So a member of the public may have a legitimate concern about some of your operations, and the Health and Safety Authority would be duty bound to investigate those type of complaints as well. And the Health and Safety Authority could also be on site as part of an inspection campaign. So from time to time, they pick particular focus areas. So it could be vehicle safety, it could be manual handling or fire safety. They have particular campaigns and then they roll out inspection visits as part of those. So when the Health and Safety Authority are on site, they may issue a report of inspection. So it's an ROI, and they can issue that without having been on site or without having carried out a workplace inspection if they have observed unsafe actions, situations, conditions, etc. So they may be passing by a workplace and they see unsafe acts taking place without actually going on site to make themselves visible to you. They may issue a report of inspection without having visited the site. And the photo there is really just to demonstrate that contractors of all types can let us down at times, including the Health and Safety Authority. So that's quite a famous photo that emerged at I think it was the National Ploughing Championships a few years ago, of a contractor not adhering to best practice around working at height. So I suppose the photo is just to show that even the authority themselves are not immune to unsafe acts and conditions. So what to expect from a workplace inspection by the Health and Safety Authority? So the point of a workplace inspection, the Health and Safety Authority inspector wants to assess how you keep the following healthy and safe from harm or injury. So they're interested to see how you're keeping yourself safe, your workers, and anybody who may be affected by your work. So it could be customers or members of the public passing by, etc. They want to know how you're keeping, what your system is in place to keep all of these people safe. So this is the typical general flow of a Health and Safety Authority inspection. So they will arrive on site and they request to see the person in charge. So that might be a health and safety manager, could be a safety representative or manager on duty. So, and they're going to outline the nature of their visit. So it's key to remember that, they're not here to catch you out. They won't arrive on site and speak to the first person they find. That could be somebody who's only joined the team recently, a younger member of staff, etc. They're not there to catch anybody out. So they will request to speak to the manager on duty, and they will make the purpose of their visit known to that person. They will let you know if it's as a result of a complaint they've received, or they will let you know if it's part of a campaign visit, or as well if it's just a random inspection. So they will let you know the nature of their visit. They generally then will review relevant health and safety documentation. So all workplaces legally are required to have a safety statement. So what they will want to do is have a look at your safety statement, and they will assess the adequacy of the controls, and they will interview staff potentially as well to ascertain if what you have committed to doing in the safety statement is actually reflective then on what happens on the ground. Typically then they have a closeout meeting with the most senior person in charge on the day. They'll want to check that person's level of awareness of their legal responsibilities with regards to health and safety. And they will report then any notices that they're going to serve on the premises as a result of her inspection. So it's vital to have internal procedures and protocols of what to do if a health and safety authority visits your site. So plan now so your team know what to do if they visit. That each senior member of staff knows what to expect and where to find information. So again, as I said at the start, if there's a significant delay in trying to find your safety statement, or if it's in somebody's office gathering dust on a shelf, that's not going to give the health and safety authority a good first impression. You should have a process that top management are notified as soon as possible by operational staff of a site visit by the health and safety authority. And again, that will reduce the amount of delay in terms of interacting with them, so they're not waiting around to speak to somebody in charge. That all staff know the visitor controls which are in place and have the inspector follow them. So while the health and safety authority inspector makes their presence known to you, have them sign in as a visitor to your site and make them aware of any specific controls that may be in place, with particular importance these days with regards to COVID-19 controls. And then also have it planned out in advance who needs to receive a copy of your health and safety report and notices. So the health and safety authority typically leave a written note behind. So you should know who needs a copy of that report to be circulated to them as a result of a health and safety authority inspection. So is it a one-size-fits-all approach? The inspector's questioning will be tailored to suit the size and complexity of the organization and the prevailing workplace circumstances. So they will ask their questions depending on who they're speaking to. They will also tailor the questions based on the level of the organization that person is at and what health and safety responsibilities they have. So again, they won't be asking somebody on the shop floor about the legal responsibilities of the person in charge of the workplace, but they very, very well may be asking those type of questions to the person in charge of the building, the most senior manager. So what kind of questions do you think a health and safety authority inspector might ask you? Does an inspector determine how does an inspector determine the level of health and safety culture and compliance with the duties? So again, they're going to examine the safety statement primarily, including any written risk assessments you may have. So that's generally one of the first things they will do once they've met the person in charge. They'll ask to see the safety statement. And what they're trying to do then is to assess the extent that it is being implemented on the ground. So safety management system in place. It's not that we have a safety statement and risk assessments in a folder in somebody's office, but it doesn't reflect then what's happening on the shop floor. They will pose questions on health and safety management, and they use those responses then to confirm their view. So once they've analyzed your safety statement and they've assessed then whether what it contains is being implemented on the ground, they will ask management then about their responses and their views around health and safety to get an overall impression of health and safety management on the site. So again, what they will look for while they're on site, they will look for general health and safety documentation. So key is your safety statement and your risk assessments. They may also look for safety data sheets for any chemicals you may have stored or use in your workplaces. They may look for work equipment maintenance logs. So again, particular focus maybe on lifting equipment and machinery such as forklifts, etc. They may want to see evidence that that type of equipment has been maintained as per the legal requirements. They may want to see copies of your statutory examinations. So again, lifts in particular are required to be examined by a competent person annually. They may want to see training records. So again, I referenced manual handling earlier. So there are certain health and safety training modules that are a legal requirement, including manual handling. So they may want to ascertain your compliance with those regulations. They may want to see checklists and evidence that you're being proactive, so that you're proactively going out there to look for health and safety issues in the workplace. Checklists as well is very important at the present time with regards to COVID-19. So they'll want to see written evidence that you have checklists in place to manage COVID-19 risk. They'll want to see evidence that you're communicating with your staff regularly with regards to health and safety. So minutes of any safety meetings that may take place, evidence of any collaboration that you've had with staff with regards to, getting them involved in risk assessments, etc. So any evidence that backs that up is important. Minutes of meetings, as I said, so health and safety meetings, or any, if you have a health and safety committee throughout your company, they may want to see copies of those minutes. And accident and incident records. So they may want to see copies of any incidents you've had recently, and they want to ascertain if you've got a good accident and incident reporting system. COVID-19 documentation then. So under the Return to Work Safely protocol, we are required now to have a COVID-19 risk assessment, which should be, attached, if not contained, within your regular safety statement and risk assessment. They may want to see employee return to work and group work forms, updated roles and responsibilities. So they'll want to see that, that you have a lead worker representative appointed for COVID-19, and that they'll want to see that that person has been trained. And again, paperwork to back that up is important. COVID-19 training records, so not just our lead worker representative, but we want to be able to demonstrate as well that all of our staff have received a COVID-19 induction, and that training is updated as the regulations change from time to time. So a good example is that once it became a legal requirement for face masks to be worn within settings such as retail stores, that we would have updated our training to reflect that. They'll want to check that we have a rapid response plan in place. So a rapid response plan is how we would deal with a suspected case of COVID-19, somebody that has suddenly started to display symptoms while at work. So they'll want to see that we have an isolation room set up and the staff are trained and know what to do in such an occurrence. Again, they'll want to see COVID-19 contractor and visitor declarations and any agreements that we've in place with our contractors. So it is key to make sure that the Health and Safety Authority Inspector has signed in. They'll also want to see evidence that is regular practice, that all contractors and visitors coming on site are signing our declaration forms for us. And again, safety data sheets. So hand sanitizer now that we have in place in our workplaces is a chemical. So we should have up-to-date safety data sheets for any hand sanitizers or any additional cleaning chemicals we now have on site as a result of COVID-19. So further on what they look for when they're on site. So they may interview staff about work activities, about what they do. And they may they'll do a review of your control of key sector risks. So, you know, if it's retail, they will be looking at slip, trip and fall controls, manual handling controls, and fire safety. You know, the key sector risk factors, that's what they're going to be interested in if it's not a more generalized campaign. They look at processes in action. So again, they will be observant at all times while in your workplace. So if we have a particular procedure or a way of dealing with spillages, you know, they'll observe then, is the practice that's happening on the shop floor reflective of our procedures. They may assess any vehicles, machinery, equipment in use while on site. They will be observant to see how chemicals are being handled and stored. And they will ascertain, you know, what level of controls are in place or lack of controls with regards to your key sector risks. They're looking out to find out what is the awareness and understanding of the responsibilities around health and safety. So they'll be asking, you know, staff about, are they aware of their responsibilities? So staff have responsibilities with regards to attending training, complying with any health and safety rules that may be on site. So it's important to note that the responsibilities do not fall on the employer or the person in charge of the place of work. There are also key responsibilities that our staff have as well. And again, they're trying to ascertain if there's an awareness and understanding of the safety statement and risk assessments. So what I add to that is that it would never be reasonable to expect that all staff would be able to word for word account for the content of a safety statement or a risk assessment. That's not the goal, but that there would be a general awareness amongst all staff as to, you know, the purpose of the safety statement, where it's located, and what it generally contains. So again, the Health and Safety Authority Inspector is trying to establish the awareness of roles and responsibilities. So it is a legal requirement that senior managers and other key role holders are aware of their responsibilities in relation to health and safety of staff and service users. So the inspector may seek to speak to some of the named people. So when we say named people, they will typically be detailed within the organizational chart, usually contained within your safety statement, because these people have responsibility for health and safety on site. They will ask key questions regarding knowledge, their responsibilities, and how they're implementing them. So it's just gone after 3:30, guys. So I am just going to pop into the chat for a second just to see if there's any questions there that, or if you have any questions so far on any of the content, you can pop them into the chat now. Nothing as of yet, but I'll just pause for a second, see if anybody pops anything in there before I move on to the outcomes of a Health and Safety Authority inspection. No? Okay, well, I'll keep going. So again, what are the possible outcomes of a Health and Safety Authority inspection? So what actions can the inspectors take once they've visited site now? What can the follow-up be? So normally they have a closeout meeting, as I said, with the most senior person in charge. And they can give then a verbal or written report of inspection. So usually these are written reports of inspection. The inspector may also need to explain and serve enforcement notices on the workplace if required. So there's a key difference there between a report of inspection and enforcement notices, and I'll go into detail on the differences between those now shortly. So It's worth noting that it is common practice at present for the HSA to issue reports of inspection via email as opposed to paperwork, and that's, you know, as a result of COVID-19 factors. Now, I've seen firsthand experience of this recently where they have still issued a handwritten report of inspection, and we have an example of one of those now shortly. So it is an important thing to note about those. So how can inspectors address issues they have found on site? So under the 2005 Act, an inspector can address issues found in one of four ways. So they can issue you with a report of inspection, which is guidance. So it's things that they would like to see you to work on over a specified period of time. So that's a report of inspection. So that could be something that they want you to do in a specified amount of time, but it's not as serious as the next section, which would be an improvement or direction notice. So where they issue an improvement or direction notice, it's similar to a report of inspection, except they have given you a defined time as well where they want this done by, but failure to comply with that would be a breach of health and safety legislation. So an improvement or direction notice is something they want you to do within a specified period of time, and failure to do that would be a breach of health and safety legislation. Alongside an improvement or direction notice, they can issue you with a prohibition notice. So this
One second there, guys. We'll just get Brendan back on. Always a slight technical issue. Just give us 2 secs there.
and now I think
2 seconds there now, guys. We're just getting the slides back up.
apologies for that, everybody.
Okay.
You're probably due a break from my voice anyway for a minute or two. I'm just going to go back here, guys, just to, again, the outcomes of a Health and Safety Authority inspection and the key actions they can take. So normally they have a closeout meeting with the most senior person in charge, and then they can order, they can give you a report of inspection, which could be verbal or written. The inspector may also need to explain and serve enforcement notices on the workplace if required. So I'm going to explain what the different categories of the enforcement notices are now. We have seen that some Health and Safety Authority inspectors recently have been issuing their reports of inspections by email to reduce the amount of paperwork that has to be dealt with regards to COVID-19, but that's not the case in all instances. So now there are 4 different ways a Health and Safety Authority inspector can issue you with notices following an inspection. The most minor of these is a report of inspection, where they will, give you some improvement directions that they want you to follow within a specified amount of time. And then normally you just respond to them saying that you have completed the following pieces of work, and that's it. More serious than a report of inspection, however, though, is an improvement direction or notice. So this is where they find that you're in non-compliance with something that's a legal requirement, and they will issue an improvement notice. So they give you time to get something addressed. So it could be to perform a risk assessment on a process, etc., or to put a guard on a piece of machinery or something like that, something to improve health and safety on your site. At the same level as an improvement direction or notice is a prohibition notice. But in this case, the Health and Safety Authority inspector has observed something happening on site that they insist you stop doing until you have provided them with evidence that you have made the practice or the process safe. So they're both at the same level, really. One is more telling you something to do, versus the prohibition notice is you must stop using this piece of equipment, or you must stop this process until you have satisfied them that you have everything in order. The most serious thing they can issue with there and then following an inspection is they may have found serious breaches of health and safety legislation, and they feel it warrants a prosecution under the 2005 Act. So in that case, they'll gather evidence and prepare a report there and then for the DPP. Now, typically prosecutions follow very serious accidents or fatalities, but again, if they find something that they feel is beyond a prohibition notice, they may just issue proceedings straight away. So this includes the possibility of a High Court action to restrict or prohibit work activities at all or parts of the workplace. So what the Health and Safety Authority may deem necessary is to shut down the workplace effectively if they feel there's significant risk to the health and safety of the people at work there or the public. So just a little bit more information around the different types of notices that the Health and Safety Authority can issue. So a report of inspection. So again, a report is issued to the person in charge during the inspection, which sets out minor breaches of the relevant laws and identifies area where improvements can be made. The person in charge countersigns this report, generally speaking, and that confirms receipt and that the items on the report will be remedied within a specified time frame. So effectively, they're issuing you written advice on how to improve health and safety practices on site. So as I've noted, it could be in the form of an email these days with regards to COVID-19, but typically speaking, it's often just a handwritten note that they write out there and then with you and get you to countersign. So again, the improvement direction relates to activities in which the inspector considers may involve risk to safety or health of persons. So an employer is required to respond with an improvement plan within which the inspector can approve or require to be amended. So they will issue you with, an improvement direction with regards to a particular process, and you as a business must respond with an improvement plan that they have to approve. So they need to give you the green light as to whether you doing what you've committed to doing is sufficient for them. So an improvement notice then, so served on a duty holder stating that the inspector's opinion that the duty holder has contravened a provision of an act or regulation and requiring that the contravention be addressed within a certain time period, not less than 14 days. So it's an improvement notice giving you 14 days to comply, or they'll commence legal proceedings. A contravention notice then, so a similar provision to an improvement notice above exists under Section 15 of the Chemicals Act 2008. So a contravention notice is similar to an improvement notice, but it's where the concern is with regards to chemicals in particular. So a similar provision exists under the carriage of dangerous goods by road regulations as well. So these are just different notices that the Health and Safety Authority can issue following an inspection. And again, guys, the presentation is going to be shared with you. So, you know, all this content you'll have to hand following the webinar. So again, a prohibition notice, that's where an inspector is of the opinion that an activity is likely to involve a risk of serious personal injury to any persons. So again, this is where they're saying immediately they want you to stop doing a specified work activity due to the level of danger. There's a particular prohibition notice as well that can be served under the Chemicals Act 2008. So that's if the risk that they feel is immediate is related to chemicals or the transport of dangerous goods by road. An information notice is then issued to a person in charge of a place of work. So that would be an information notice to provide the authority with perhaps training records that weren't available on the day of the inspection, etc. So Health and Safety Authority notices and definitions and the statistics. So these are up to date. So 45% of all visits by the Health and Safety Authority to our workplace result in a written report of inspection handed out at the time of the inspection. So almost half of all visits, they'll issue you with something you can improve on, but it's, you know, it's guidance really, and it's not, you just respond then once you're happy that you followed that advice. Again, over 45% are advisory in nature. Less than 10% of all inspections result in formal enforcement actions being taken. So they're the improvement notices or the prohibition notices. So less than 10% of all inspections result in something formal like this taking place. And the authority concluded 15 successful prosecutions in 2018. So that's the most up-to-date statistics available with regards to prosecutions, because cases can take so long to go through the courts. And they imposed total fines of 705,000 north of that. So, you know, that's the level of fines that were issued by the authority to businesses that were in serious breach of the regulations. So a report of inspection then. So a copy of a handwritten report of inspection can be left with the employer or safety rep identifying items requiring attention. The inspector normally requires a signature from the person in charge at the time in agreement to signify agreement with what has been requested. So the report will detail the following: the name and details of the workplace inspected, the name of the Health and Safety Authority inspector. They'll confirm whether a copy was given to a safety rep and the date by which a response is required when marked as yes. So I'll show you an example of one of these reports of inspections now. So, you know, following my inspection, this report of inspection was handed to the person confirming receipt below. The items listed should receive your attention. A response detailing how these matters has been addressed is to be sent to the inspector at the address overleaf before this specific date. So the report of inspection will detail the findings and recommendation, and they will outline the issue, relevant legislation and action required. So this one here, it's handwritten, so you can, as you can see, it can be quite difficult to read back on. So it's key that whoever meets the Health and Safety Authority inspector and countersigns this notice understands in detail what is being requested of them. So in this instance, it's to update subcontractor management systems to ensure drivers are aware of company safety statement, safe systems of work, procedures, risk assessments, and consigner load serving procedures, loading and unloading procedures. So I suppose this example here just shows you it's handwritten, it's issued to you there and then on the day. So it's key to understand exactly what they're looking for before you countersign it. And again, they then will ask for confirmation of receipt. So they'll get somebody to sign off, given their job title and their name and the date and time they've received this report of inspection. You then respond to the Health and Safety Authority using this slip here. So the inspector typically fills out their own name on this, and then the rest, you sign off the date, and you're happy then. I confirm that the matters identified in the report of inspection have been remedied, yes or no. I include additional documentation, photographs supporting my opinion, yes or no. So again, you're just sending this back to the authority, confirming that you've taken on board all the advice they've issued you with on the report of inspection. Okay, so responding to a report of inspection. So the Health and Safety Authority may follow up by email, telephone, letter, or in person. So it's key that you always respond before any date given by the Health and Safety Authority. If you think that you need more time to comply with what they're asking you to do, be proactive. Pick up the phone to them or send them an email to request more time. They're generally understanding with that regard, because in this instance, it's not something that they deem is going to cause immediate harm to somebody. So that's why they'll generally be a little bit more flexible when it's a report of inspection. So the extension may or may not be granted depending on the severity of the actions required, and a granted extension will be confirmed to you in writing by the Health and Safety Authority. Never ignore any report of inspection by the authority, as this may encourage them to revisit your site and put you under further scrutiny. So if you have received a report of inspection and you don't agree with it, can an appeal be made if you don't agree? Yes, is the simple answer. So if a person or business is aggrieved by an improvement notice, contravention notice, prohibition notice, they have the right to appeal, and the manner for lodging an appeal against a prohibition notice, improvement notice, or information notice under the 2005 Act is prescribed here under the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act 2005 appeals forms. So again, this is if you feel you've been very harshly treated by the Health and Safety Authority, but generally speaking, as I've said earlier, they're open to giving you advice and feedback. So they're not here to catch you out. They're here really just to ensure compliance with legislation. So further information on appeals, they can be lodged with the local district court within 7 days from the date of a notice. The judge may confirm, vary, or cancel the notice, and the court has discretion to direct that the operation of the notice be suspended for this period. And the Health and Safety Authority should be notified of an appeal and the grounds for the appeal. The Health and Safety Authority is entitled to appear, be heard, and produce evidence. So this is for like very serious cases where the Health and Safety Authority may have, asked you to stop a particular process or procedure, and you feel it's not warranted or not justified. So you would have to appeal that to the district court, and the Health and Safety Authority would put their side forward as to why they feel it's valid that you stop that activity, and you would have to produce counter evidence in front of a judge to get the judge to agree with you as to why it's an unfair notice. So now, how to be proactive and how to get ready for a Health and Safety Authority inspection. So let's take a step back and look at how we are managing safety on site. So these are the employer's roles and responsibilities under health and safety legislation. So the employer has a duty under legislation to provide a safe place of work, to provide safe systems of work, to provide and maintain PPE and adequate welfare facilities, which is, never been as important as it is now with regards to COVID-19. The employer has a duty to ensure safety conscious staff and a safe organization of work activities. It has a responsibility to prepare a site-specific risk assessment and a safety statement with a health and safety policy. It has the company must apply and communicate controls to any identified risks. The business must carry out health and safety checks and audits, and to prevent improper conduct or behavior. An employer has a role and responsibility to report accidents and any dangerous occurrences. And the employer has a responsibility to use competent safety persons for specific tasks. So things like servicing your fire extinguishers, that task must be conducted by a competent person. And it's up to the employer to ensure that the person undergoing any safety critical work is what's known as competent. So an adequate safety management system on site is made up of the following aspects. So it's made up of your safety and your health and safety policy, which outlines management's responsibility, the leadership, how the system is administered, document control, and emergency response planning. So that's kind of falls under safety and policy. Safety assurance then is procedures and instructions. So how we want work to be carried out, we need to assure that it's carried out in a safe manner by having written procedures and instruction to staff how we want them to carry out their tasks. We must have safety promotion on site. So again, health and safety training, health and safety collaboration and communication between employers and staff. And then having a very robust risk management system, which includes hazard identification and risk assessment, and any incidents or accidents, then we investigate them thoroughly. So these are just some of the key aspects of a good, healthy safety management system that should be on site. So how the inspector determines the extent of management compliance. So the Health and Safety Authority inspector on site will examine the safety statement, including your risk assessments. They'll identify hazards, assess risk, implement controls, and outline measures to manage health and safety. So the Health and Safety Authority inspector will not do a risk assessment on your site for you. They'll examine your risk assessments and come up with an opinion, come up with their opinion as to whether they are compliant or not. So again, they're going to assess the extent to which safety management system is in place. So are the policies and procedures in action, or is it just a tick the box exercise? Have you purely got a safety statement and a risk assessment in place for legal compliance, and it's in an office somewhere that nobody refers to from one end of the year to the next? And again, the Health and Safety Authority inspector will pose questions to management and to ascertain the person in charge's level of awareness, knowledge, and understanding of the health and safety management system. So identifying hazards, assessing risk, and implementing controls. So by examining the safety statement, including your risk assessments, you're going to verify, have you identified hazards in your workplace? Have you assessed the risks? And have you outlined and implemented relevant control measures? Are all your relevant risk assessments documented? And do you have a named person who has taken responsibility for health and safety matters? And is everyone aware? Are all your health and safety policies and procedures properly documented and reviewed? And all of this should be tied together by having a safety statement. And this safety statement and your risk assessments should be communicated to your staff at least annually. So we're saying at least annually, or if there's any significant change to the workplace. So the perfect example of a significant change to all our workplaces in the last 12 months has been COVID-19. So that's why we should have updated our safety statement to update with a COVID-19 policy, and we should have COVID-19 risk assessments that have been communicated to all our staff. So evidence then that the policies and procedures are more than just words. So again, we're trying to verify that all our policies and procedures are living documents, that they're not just a tick the box exercise. So are we being proactive with regards to risk management on site? Are people complying with the various health and safety policies? So it's not adequate to have a health and safety policy with regards to slip, trip and fall management or fire safety if people aren't complying on the shop floor with those policies. Are the procedures generally known and are they being followed? Do you have records of employee training? So again, training is a legal requirement that all staff receive health and safety training, and we must have records to back it up. Is all our equipment and machinery in good working order, with any safety guards fully operational? Have staff been trained on safe use of said machinery? Have we got a service history and a planned preventative maintenance system in place for servicing any safety critical equipment? How do we escalate health and safety matters? So do we have health and safety reps, a health and safety committee? Do we report, record, investigate, and follow up on all accidents and incidents, regardless of how minor they may appear? And do we conduct and record regular safety inspections? Can you prove that you do what you say you do? So again, it's making sure that it's not a tick the box exercise, health and safety, that whatever we commit to doing in our safety statement is actually happening then in reality. Again, how the Health and Safety Authority try to establish evidence of knowledge, awareness and understanding amongst staff and in particular senior management. They'll pose questions on health and safety management and they use the responses to confirm their view. Are the systems connected to the people? What is their awareness, knowledge and understanding? So are employees aware of the legal duties of an employer and employee in relation to health and safety? And again, I'm going to stress the point again, it's key that all employees are aware of their responsibilities around health and safety. It's not just the responsibilities of the employer. Are employees aware of any additional responsibilities they may have due to specific roles? So you may have appointed them a role of being a fire warden, a first aider, a safety rep, etc. So they need to be aware of the responsibility they now hold by fulfilling these roles. Are our most senior people, like our directors and senior managers, aware of their liabilities within the health and safety legislation? Is there evidence that the systems are connected to the people on the floor? Is there a good level of understanding, awareness and knowledge? So they will ascertain, this level of awareness and understanding by interacting with people on the shop floor. So they will ask members of staff, are they aware of what the new COVID-19 control measures are? And have they received any training, etc.? So that's how they will gauge that level of awareness. They will look for evidence of regular communication and consultation. So safety meetings, toolbox talks, whatever they are, whatever we call them on our sites, we should be able to back those up by showing evidence. So it could be minutes of those meetings or records of staff having attended safety briefings. So can you prepare for a Health and Safety Authority inspection in advance? The answer is yes, you can. If you're managing safety on site and can show compliance with your legal duties, you'll always be ready for a workplace inspection from the Health and Safety Authority. So by having a good, robust health and safety management system in place, you'll be ready for a Health and Safety Authority inspection at any time. No, it's worth noting, most workplace inspections are unannounced. So you will never know the minute or time or hour that a Health and Safety Authority inspector may arrive on site. So you need to be ready at all times, and when key managers cannot be on site 24/7, 7 days a week. So people that are deputizing for them need to be aware of the responsibilities they have and know where to find safety statements, risk assessments, those kind of documentation in the absence of a site manager. So this is an overview of a Health and Safety Authority investigation. So we'll first look at what circumstances can result in an investigation by the Health and Safety Authority. So this is very different now to just a regular site visit by the Health and Safety Authority. This is where it's an actual investigation. So Health and Safety Authorities are required to investigate all fatal accidents that occur at work and which are due to a work activity. They will also investigate the circumstances into certain serious non-fatal incidents at your workplace. So not all non-fatal incidents, but if they see records coming through of a serious accident occurring on one of your sites, they may investigate. And again, they may investigate certain complaints made to them on unsafe work practices. So not all, like they won't investigate all complaints and they won't investigate all non-fatal accidents, but they may do so. So approximately 5% of all visits by the Health and Safety Authority are due to an accident or complaint. So with an accident, their aim is to determine the underlying cause of the accident or dangerous occurrence and to establish if any remedial action that may be necessary or if a prosecution is warranted. So if you've had a very serious accident on your site, they will come on site, look at the underlying cause of it, and perhaps issue you then with a prosecution if they feel is necessary. With complaints, the Health and Safety Authority Inspector may investigate and conclude if a complaint is justified and or not justified and take no further action on it. So during an investigation by the Health and Safety Authority, they have certain powers under law which allows them to, again, enter, inquire into, search and inspect a place of work, obtain information from employers and employees, interview people about work activities which led to an accident, take witness statements, require the production of records and to make and retain copies. They may want to test, examine, remove or retain any article, substance or sample at the workplace. And they may want to install and maintain monitoring instruments on your site. And they have all these powers under legislation. So now, there's particular focus around COVID-19 and the Health and Safety Authority and new responsibilities they have in light of COVID-19. So the Health and Safety Authority now have a responsibility in relation to implementation of COVID-19 controls in the workplace. And an inspector is likely to ask you the following: have you a COVID-19 response plan? Have your employees received COVID-19 training? Have you got adequate COVID-19 control measures in place? And the only way you can ascertain your COVID-19 control measures is by having conducted a risk assessment. Has a COVID-19 lead worker representative been appointed? So, over 4,000 inspections or investigations have been carried out by the HSA since May of last year, when public restrictions to prevent the spread of COVID-19 were eased. So those 4,000 inspections were purely with the focus of looking at high-risk workplaces in particular and looking at their COVID-19 controls. Some 3,215 of these inspections and investigations related to the work safety protocol guidelines for reopening workplaces during the pandemic. So the HSA has said that 92% of businesses had control measures in place, but the other 8% did not. So they have noted that there has been generally strong compliance and adherence with the measures set out in the work safety protocol. So to conclude, You will be ready for a Health and Safety Authority inspection if there is good awareness of health and safety responsibilities on site. And that's good awareness amongst all people involved. So it's management, employees, contractors. If everybody on your site is aware of their responsibility with regard to health and safety, you'll be ready. If you have a safety statement and all your risk assessments in place and up to date, you're going to be ready for a Health and Safety Authority inspection. If the arrangements outlined in your documentation above, your safety statement and your risk assessments, is alive and visible. So again, by that, what we mean is that what we say we do in our safety statement and our risk assessments is actually reflected then in the day-to-day activities, and the Health and Safety Authority inspector should be able to see that when they get on site. You'll be ready for a Health and Safety Authority inspection if there is evidence of compliance with your safety management system. So when we say evidence of compliance, it falls back a lot of the time on record keeping and paperwork and being able to demonstrate that, yes, staff were trained in certain controls. Yes, staff were consulted when we were carrying out our risk assessments. And again, being able to produce evidence of this is key. You will be ready for a Health and Safety Authority inspection if your team know what to do when a Health and Safety Authority inspector arrives on site. So again, it's having an awareness among staff of the role of the Health and Safety Authority, and let them know that if somebody comes on site and identifies the Safety Authority inspector, all team members should be aware to treat them with respect and to track down the most senior member of staff on site at that time. You know, not to leave them waiting or to not notify management and just let them go wandering about in the store themselves, something like that. So a Health and Safety Authority inspection, how you'll be ready is by having your risk assessments, having your safety statement implemented, appointing all responsible persons to roles such as fire wardens, first aiders, COVID-19 reps, etc. Having a living health and safety policy that all your staff have signed off on at least annually. So all our staff should be shown our health and safety policy and sign off that they have read it. Employee training and awareness, weekly checklists, safety inspection documentation, and that we review and update all of the above as necessary. So our weekly checklist should be updated as the workplace changes. Employee training should change to reflect current practices. And that we have a good, robust accident and incident reporting system. So all accidents and incidents, including near misses, should be treated as learning opportunities. So anytime we've had an incident or a near miss or a minor accident, we should always be investigating those with a view of preventing a more serious reoccurrence of a similar type incident. So a myth out there is that the health and safety authorities are just looking to catch people out and issue fines. So as we've stated previously, over 90% of people who have received a health and safety authority inspection have claimed it's had a positive impact on the business. So as I said, treat a health and safety authority inspection as a learning opportunity and see where you can improve on your system. Only 1% of people surveyed claimed that a health and safety authority visit or inspection had a negative impact on the business. It appears to improve workplace focus and attention on health and safety. So be prepared and make the most of a health and safety workplace inspection. Thank you very much, guys. Apologies for the little glitch halfway through. Technical gremlins hit, but hopefully we weren't too long in a delay mode. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy now to take any questions that you may have. You can just pop them through into the chat there or raise your hands. If a complaint is made, can you find out where it came from, or is it anonymous? Good question, Kevin, and very much a complaint could be made anonymously to the Health and Safety Authority. So the Health and Safety Authority may not be aware themselves as to who has made the complaint. Typically speaking, if it would be a staff member that would ring up the Health and Safety Authority or contact them to complain or to report something, the Health and Safety Authority will then make you aware that it has been a staff member, but they wouldn't be duty bound to let you know the name of the person making the complaint or the staff member making the complaint. That's if they know themselves who has made it. Good question. Typically, when what I have observed over my years in health and safety is that, you know, a staff member or a member of the public making a complaint to the Health and Safety Authority will often be last resort, that they may already have, you know, made their complaint to you themselves, and they may feel that there has been no traction with it or no action has been taken. So often in those type of cases, then they may feel their only resort is to go to the Health and Safety Authority. So, you know, if you've had complaints from staff over a certain issue, you know, certain practices that staff may have concerns about, if they have brought those to management's attention and they haven't been addressed, then sometimes what you will see then is that the Health and Safety Authority complaint will follow on from that. And you may have a good idea of the staff that may have made the complaint, but again, no, the Health and Safety Authority would not let you know names, etc., of who has made a complaint to them. Okay, happy to answer any more questions that you have, guys. Or again, if you think of anything following on from the webinar, you know, just feel free to get those questions through to us. Keelan will be happy to share our information and contact details out there, I'm sure, and it'll be on the presentation there anyway. Our contact numbers and addresses there will all be made available to you on the presentation.
That's super, Brendan. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Keelan. So
okay,
again,
guys.
Thanks very much, everybody. I hope you found it informative, and hopefully we've gotten you ready or somewhat ready now for a Health and Safety Authority inspection that may take place.
Thanks, Brendan. Okay, talk to you later, guys.